What's poppin'? Welcome back to Maxify Seminar, where today we're going to be taking a look at The Machinist, a movie directed by Brad Anderson that came out in 2005 and stars Christian Bale as a machine worker who hasn't slept in a year, and their seeming dive into insanity.
So, first of all, for this role, Christian Bale lost an extreme amount of weight.
62 pounds.
62 pounds. And I thought that was incredible because although he looks in this movie like he's malnourished and like he wouldn't have energy, he still does a great job acting.
Yes.
Even though you can see him leaning on objects and stuff like that.
Yeah,
which I think...
He got very physical in this role too, with some, like, a part where he was running away, being chased by someone, parts where he was running, carrying someone. He was still very physical despite his weakened condition.
So, even though he looks very tired and malnourished, he still does a great job acting. And since he is this guy that hasn't slept in a year, it does add to his performance.
Absolutely. I thought going in that his performance may suffer from him being kind of malnourished. Living on, it was a can of tuna and an apple every day was how he was able to manage this extreme weight loss. And I went in thinking there's no way he's going to be able to maintain a performance with that little energy, because like if I like miss breakfast and then don't eat lunch for a while, I'm like spacey. So like this is just incredible because this is a really good performance. I don't know if it's his best of all time, but it's still a very riveting performance, and he really does make the movie.
So, as we said, he's always really tired in this movie because of just his character is an insomniac, and he seems drained. And one thing they did to really make that seem so just pronounced is the use of color. For example, everything is really toned down in most scenes.
Yes, the colors in this film are very drowned out, very gray and brown, and that definitely is a great compliment to that insomnia part of the character and the part of the movie, of his life and his mindset are just so like dulled down, and just the cinematography of this film reflects that dullness very well.
And they do have parts where he's remembering things, like from his childhood, where they actually bring back all the color. And that makes it more impactful when the color's gone, because it feels like he's missing something or something's gone or drained out.
Mm-hmm. They do bring back the color often in flashbacks, but also in parts that are maybe happening in a different state of mind that kind of hint at something being off, where you see these bright colors and you see that the shots are much brighter, much more pungent with color, and
you're kind of like, something's
you
wrong.
kind of get to feel that there is some hidden depth to certain parts of this film, which there are for sure.
One other thing they do in this movie is there's a ton of foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This movie excels in setting up little things that seem like they're going to lead nowhere, or seem like there's no way they could lead into some massive event, and they do. And
it's weird because you can spot the foreshadowing. You can be like, that's going to be something later, but you don't know how.
Yeah. It's something very small or something very insignificant that you're like, how is that ever going to play into this? But it is really good at repetitive imagery and pushing these very specific images towards you and then using them later to pay off that. And so it culminates in some really great payoffs as you get into the second half of the movie.
As we get into the second half of the movie, we also kind of get this like feeling of like untrustworthy narration. Like you don't know what's real and things like that.
Yeah. Throughout most of this movie, it is a little bit confusing as to what is actually happening versus what might just be happening in Bale's character's imagination. And that's a very Fincher-esque thing to do, which it was popular to kind of emulate David Fincher's type of direction during this period after The Game, after Fight Club, after Seven. And so it does feel like it copycats those movies a little bit in that aspect, and the movie has a kind of feeling of it's been done before, but it does make for a very fascinating story where you really don't know what's happening, and really you don't even know what the movie's about.
Yeah, so really in this movie, we know he's an insomniac, and we just know that. We don't really figure out anything until the climax of this movie, which does add to suspense, but it also makes the rest of the movie feel like it's lacking something.
Yeah, because we only know what the film is about after the big reveal at the end, after the climax, we don't really get a whole movie worth of development on that theme, which, as it turns out, this movie is, above all, about grief and the process of guilt, really.
Yeah.
And that was a theme that, earlier in this movie, it shoots off in a lot of different little directions, touching on a lot of themes in smaller ways. It seems to lean towards the mundanity of 9 to 5 working. It launches into something about lost childhood, and it does touch on grief earlier in the film, but not enough to where you can tell that that is what the movie is centered around.
Yeah, I think they could have made it more grief-centered in other ways without. They could have made it more grief-centered all around, not just a couple parts here and there.
Other than the payoff in the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Because it is a movie that, on rewatching, which this is a very rewatchable movie, I think. Lots of psychological thrillers like this are intensely rewatchable. This one, I can't wait to see it again. But on rewatch, it will have that grief element. You will feel that more. But on initial watching, you don't really get to feel that the whole movie is about that process of guilt. And so the impact of the movie is kind of lessened because you don't know what it's about until that ending.
Overall, it was a good movie. It was a great story about what grief can do to you and how someone can just kind of lose it if they're under a ton of pressure.
Yeah, how you can suffer over guilt and grief that goes unsaid and that just boils in your mind without anyone really knowing. And it is a film about that process and about how we treat ourselves based on what we've done. But it's also a movie about how we treat other people and how our interactions with other people can affect ourselves. So it is a pretty morally deep movie if you think about it, but it's also a very compelling thriller.
Yeah, I think it definitely has the element of surprise, and you are always wondering what's going to happen next. And that's just, I think that was a plus for me. So I'm gonna give The Machinist a thumbs up, 2 stars.
I'm going to give The Machinist an almost thumbs up, 1.5 stars. I really did enjoy this movie. I just felt like it has been done before, and I felt like the major theme of guilt could have been handled a little bit better. But other than that, it's an excellent film, and one that not enough people have seen. It is a very niche movie, and it did just get put on Netflix, so do go check this one out. It is a very unique
We
cinematic
actually have
experience.
been planning on watching this for a while, and we finally got the opportunity because it came to Netflix, so
Yeah.
definitely check that out.
Mm-hmm. I've been Max.
I've been Blake.
This has been
Maxify
Maxify Seminar.
And we'll see you in the next one.